I feel that there's actually a lot of Singaporeans overseas, and half of them are. It's not really because of their wish; they're being pushed out. In Singapore, there are few people who just can't find jobs here, or at some point, I think recently, there are families that find things too expensive. But somehow they've given they've been given an opportunity to relocate, and everybody took the opportunity. And it's not like, oh, in US everything is rosy, everything is better, but it feels that it's not that it's better, it's just that you seem to have more options. So even if you go to China, so I have friends that can't find jobs here, eventually they end up in China. And in China, even if you get the same paying job as Singapore, you can, depends on where you want to stay, you have options to stay frugally, or you have options to eat frugally, or live the same lifestyle as you have. So this way you get to save more. Uh, Friends who are in London, same thing. Eventually if you get there, then it just seems that this options thing is it's missing from Singapore, because if I'm trying to get kopi o and eggs and for breakfast, even if I go up to Punggol, sometimes it's more expensive than in Toa Payoh. So it doesn't make sense. It's not about rent. It's just, why is everything just so expensive?
So, like for a person who has working so many years overseas, what do you think would attract you back to Singapore?
It really depends on where you are overseas. Like for me, I mean, I've always been involved in human rights, and uh, so I think having a more open space where your voices actually get heard. So now I'm actually visiting different parties, and this, to me as a Singaporean, that the only time you get to speak to an MP is 1 month before election. This is something that is wrong. I think MPs are people who are your representative, people who sort of represent you in Parliament. So if you have anything, you can sort of tell them, hey, this is what's wrong with this area. This thing is broken, this damage. I have concerns about security. But you don't get to meet them. Even at MPS session, you get to meet someone that's screening you, and you get a letter written, which most of the time doesn't really translate. How does that guy know about what's going on the ground? How does he represent me if my voice doesn't get heard? And if there's so many people trying to meet him about just little things, because there's just so many problems on the ground, or begging for money because Singapore is just so hard to survive, then they get like food vouchers, and this is like, why is such problems happening? Like, why is the election system, or basically how our politics work, why is it wrong, or what went wrong? So I'm just back to really understand the whole system, and not even sure whether will I be back in long term or not, because if I don't see any opportunity, or if I don't think things are fair, maybe I'll work in capacity of me being overseas and make my money. I'll come back for 6 months and try and fix things here with what I made. Because if I stay here and make money here, I don't think I can have any sabbatical, because whatever you make here, you spend, and that costs so much more, even compared to New York. So if I live in Queens, an apartment is like $200,000. I've got one train station, two downtown, I can work there, live somewhere outside. Apartment, freehold, $210,000, I get 3 bedrooms. Can you get something here in Singapore? Not really. And the whole idea of, I can live in town, downtown area, like in Times Square, and my neighbor can be from Section 8. Someone living from, low income, getting low income job, but we live in the same apartment. I think these are things where you can't really tell someone whether it's, you could somewhat tell, but even if you have an address in Tanglin, an apartment, this guy's rich. It's clear that if you live in certain address, you have money, you're elitist. But I think this shouldn't be a case where you have people where you get a lot of misconceptions where, oh, poor people do this, and I think all this thing is based on the same fact where you've got this income gap which the country is not addressing, and in the end it's actually made worse because even the MPs or the ministers are getting that kind of tax, the high income, because of what they call dignity. Like, to me, I think it's all about really human capital or like social capital. What can you do? I would respect someone like even Professor Muhammad Yunus. He started microfinance. I respect him a lot, and he's not drawing high salary. It's just because of what he's done. I think your deeds speak a lot louder than how much you have. Anyone selling drugs can have multi-million dollar, can drive a Ferrari. Anyone who is related to Chinese Communist Party, being an investor in Singapore, driving a Ferrari, being an investor, like, do I trust people like that? Do you think they have more dignity than us, than your average Singaporean, just because they have money? I think that's a big question where the people on top actually changes and molds the mindsets of everybody else from the way they talk, from the way they speak, and something needs to be done. So instead of being an average Singaporean where I go in there and I complain, so now I want to come down and see if I can actually take action and make some change. So that's why I'm back, but I'm not back permanently. Hopefully at some point Singapore can be a country that I can call home again, and my views and what I do can be accepted here. But currently there's still, a lot of ifs. So I'm just hoping for the best that we can get change this year.